Hello, Thunder Wizards. So I want to revisit a very interesting and very popular subject known as Kundalini awakening. So if you search online or you search on YouTube or wherever and you just type in Kundalini awakening, you're going to find all kinds of videos from people who will tell you about physical experiences, physical symptoms. They may even talk about visions, dreams, things like that, and they will attribute it to Kundalini awakening. You will also hear horror stories of people who will tell you that their Kundalini awakening was a very traumatic, horrific experience. So there's a lot of information out there, and there's, I think, a lot of confusion about what a Kundalini awakening is. So in this video, I am going to share with you the 5 signs that you have achieved a Kundalini awakening. Watch this whole video, because at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving you information about how you can go to stimulate your Kundalini, to awaken your Kundalini, and to open your chakras. There's specific techniques to do that, and then you will be able to experience what a true Kundalini awakening is. You can take some control over that, and if you haven't had that, make that happen. If you have had a Kundalini experience, then this may broaden your horizons about what it is you've been experiencing. Okay, so my background is that I have been working in multiple shamanic disciplines from all over the world for my entire adult life. Taoism, the shamanism of China, where they get very deep into energy magic and very deep into meditation, and actually magic and all kinds of other things too. I've worked with West African shamans, and I've been given their knowledge, and according to some, I'm considered a master of West African shamanic drumming, and I can tell you that that has its own powerful experience as well. And I was a teacher of Kundalini yoga for quite a few years. And I practiced Kundalini yoga for quite a few years. I'm also a mantra teacher. Why am I telling you all this? I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you this because every single culture that has a true energetic practice has a very specific flavor to it. And you can get energy experiences in all of them. So I want to share with you so that you can pinpoint your energy experiences and get a better idea. Because one of the problems with the term Kundalini awakening is that people who have limited experiences, maybe they haven't done anything, or they've only done maybe a little bit of yoga or a little bit of this, and they have an experience, they immediately want to label it Kundalini awakening. And you'll see a lot of people who talk about this. And so I believe in the educational variety that it's important to know what these energies are. So for instance, becoming a master of Taoist energy practice and learning the power of Qi, that's going to have its own feeling and experience to it. The energy experience that I had when I play the traditional West African rhythms, which you have to do very precisely, and when you do them precisely, it literally opens up portals to other dimensions and beings who are called the orishas will come into the room with you, and you can feel them, and you can when I would do it, my crown chakra would open, and it was hard for me to function for a couple of days. So you have to understand that energy experiences are common all over the world, and they all can feel very different. So let us find out what Kundalini awakening is. In order to do that, we will get to the 5 signs. And again, as I said, when we get to the end, I'll tell you exactly what you can do to safely and powerfully awaken your Kundalini and open your chakras. Okay? So what is Kundalini? Kundalini is, it's not what you've heard. People, if you just type in what is Kundalini, you're going to hear people saying that Kundalini is the life force energy of the universe. It's not. And the reason why I say that is because Kundalini is a very specific word that is used in East Indian spiritual practices, and they have a word for life force energy. That word is prana. Prana is identical to the Chinese word qi, orgone, life force energy, ond in the Norse tradition, atham. That is life force energy. And so they wouldn't mix up the words. So if somebody tells you that Kundalini is the life force energy of the universe, they are mistaken because prana is its own word, breath work. Kundalini is something else. Now, breath work can sometimes stimulate the awakening of Kundalini. So that's an understandable um, misunderstanding there, a mistake. But Kundalini is its own energy source. So Kundalini is, if physically in the body, it is wrapped around the base of the spinal column. And I think Kundalini means lock of hair of the beloved or something like that. But it's like a lock of hair that's wrapped around the bottom of your spinal cord. And when Kundalini awakens, it tends to rise like a serpent. This is one of the reasons why it's called serpent energy, not because it's associated with reptilians or anything like that. It's just simply that's what it does. And when it rises up the spine tends to wave like a serpent, like a cobra. So that's why they call it the serpent energy, not because it's associated with snakes. And when Kundalini is awakened, there are people can have physical symptoms. So let me change the wording here. When Kundalini is stimulated, people can have symptoms. I'm changing the words very precisely because awakening has an association with higher consciousness, awareness, liberation, moksha, enlightenment. But just because you've awakened something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result in enlightenment. So I'm going to shift the words a little bit. When Kundalini is stimulated, you can have all kinds of symptoms. One of them is that you rock back and forth, or there's been times when I've done, in fact, I can do it now if I chose to, but where, especially during certain mantras or meditations, where you just kind of, you start going in a circle, and it can go in either direction, right? And you're not even trying to, and your body will shake. Sometimes people will go into spontaneous mudras, spontaneous movements, yogic postures, spontaneous light language, where they'll start speaking another language, which may not even be a human language. All kinds of things can happen. You can have physical sensations where you feel a tingling, a warmth. Now, this right here can be confusing because you can have those same experiences with other types of energy stimulation, like intense chi, intense prana can also create tingling sensations, warmth sensations, and out of body experiences. And that can be simply from life force energy, from chi or prana, from breath work. The African shamanic drumming had its own very specific feeling. It didn't feel like Kundalini, it didn't feel like chi energy, and it would, make me do all kinds of weird things and feel and experience weird things. And like I said, my crown chakra, I could feel like the top of my head would be like, and I wouldn't be able to function. Like, in fact, when I used to do, if you look on my channel, you can see me play. But when I would teach or when I would perform, I'd be pretty worthless for about 24 hours. And directly after, like after the performance, people would want to come up and talk to me and ask me questions. And like, how much is your class or something? And I was married at the time. I'm single now, but I was married at the time. And I would have to, they'd say, how much is your class? And I'd have to look over at my wife and say, how much is my class again? Because things like numbers and money just didn't mean anything to me. It was a whole different experience. Okay, so if you're having experiences of hot flashes or tingling or warmth or feelings of energy rushing through your body, that may be the sign that Kundalini is being stimulated, but it might not be. It might be a sign that you've got life force energy, that the meridians are opening up. It could be all kinds of things. So don't necessarily jump on the bandwagon and say, I'm having a Kundalini awakening. Um, so other things can be that you have visions, that you see things, like you'll see entities or beings or lights. That's very common. You might even hear voices or sounds. These can all be signs of Kundalini stimulation. But let's talk about what Kundalini is. Let's go even deeper. Because one of the main um, uh, beliefs about Kundalini awakening is that if you awaken your Kundalini, then you will achieve enlightenment. And what people want to ascribe enlightenment to is being free from rebirth. So, one of the things that can happen when Kundalini is stimulated is that people oftentimes will go and believe themselves to be divine, which of course you are. But they will have this experience that they're a god. They will have this experience where a lot of people will feel as though they are a god and that they can control the weather or that they control human fate or that they can control the world. These, of course, are delusions. So just because your Kundalini is stimulated doesn't mean you're achieving true enlightenment. Doesn't mean your third eye is opened. You might experience a lot of delusions. This is very common. This is called Kundalini psychosis. So again, Kundalini psychosis, Kundalini awakening, Kundalini stimulation. Kundalini psychosis is the result of intense Kundalini stimulation. It's not a sign that you've achieved Kundalini awakening. So I want you to be very clear about that. Having a Kundalini experience could just be a Kundalini experience. It could be Kundalini psychosis. And it could be Kundalini awakening. And I'm going to give you the 5 signs of Kundalini awakening at the end of this video. We need to know what Kundalini is. Kundalini is the feminine psycho-spiritual energy in the human body. I'll say that to you again. Kundalini is the feminine psycho-spiritual energy within the human body. Cats and dogs do not have Kundalini. They don't. This is particular to humans. Kundalini is a goddess. One of her names is Maya. Maya means illusion, means attachment. So here we run into a misconception about having a Kundalini experience, that a lot of people think, oh, I am becoming enlightened. I'm no longer going to have rebirth. I'm disconnecting. When in reality, if it is a Kundalini experience, it is connected to your attachment, your psychological attachment. Now, before you start judging attachment, let's get out of superficial spirituality. That everything is love and light, and I'm not attached to anything, and I don't have any anger. Listen, you're a human being. You're here to have a human experience. That includes Kundalini. Kundalini is a human experience. Okay? So don't superficially, stereotype what it means to have a spiritual experience. Kundalini is the force within the human body that attaches you to physical life. It attaches you to desires. Now, the value of Kundalini work in spiritual work is when you refine your Kundalini through things like Kundalini yoga, if you want to go through for a physical experience, mantra meditation, or breath work. And I'm going to give you links to a very powerful mantra which is all about stimulating and refining Kundalini to give you a greater spiritual experience. So it's important that we be able to know the difference between Kundalini psychosis, Kundalini experience, and Kundalini awakening. They're all three very different things. They're related because we're talking about Kundalini, but they're not the same thing. So Kundalini is the feminine power, the goddess within you. And remember, the goddess has created physical reality. She literally has created the illusion of physical reality, and she has also created all of your desires. Your desire for love, your desire for connection, your desire for physical pleasure, your desire for knowledge, and the yearning. This is important to understand. Kundalini creates a yearning to be with the infinite because she is the feminine. So we look at the Shiva Shakti connection. Shiva is the male energy, the masculine energy, the god. He sits on top of the Himalayas and he is constantly in meditation. He represents the Himalayas, the top of the crown chakra. When you get up here, you're no longer connected. You can still be in your body, but you're no longer connected to desires. You don't care. That's why the stereotypical monk who lives out in the wilderness, who just lives in a jungle with a loincloth and a begging bowl, he doesn't want anything. You know, he just meditates he or she just meditates for days on end and maybe won't eat and will fast and whatever food they get, they eat, and they're not interested in anything physical. That's the Shiva principle. The Shakti principle is having things, having money, having a home, having a family, having children, having desires, good food, good clothing, sex. This is the feminine. The feminine is all of these desires. Now, every human, whether you're male or female, you're made up of both of these things. So I'm not saying that only feminine women have desires. Men do, because we have a feminine within us. It's just the only thing that has come to the surface in me, if you're a heterosexual male, is you see the masculine. But on the inside, there's a ton of feminine in there. Everybody's got it, the mix of masculine and feminine. But it is the feminine power of the goddess that brings attachment, which is pleasure and enjoyment, but also a yearning, because she yearns for her beloved. So Kundalini will give you a yearning for the spiritual, which is why many people, when their Kundalini is stimulated or awakened, they become extremely spiritual. This is why. Okay, so let's get rid of the misunderstanding. Kundalini is not enlightenment, meaning you're not going to incarnate anymore, unless you purify your Kundalini, which means you will purify your attachment to this material world. And that is the spiritual practice. When you are in meditation and you are connecting to the infinite and you are having a physical experience of that, that is the union of Shiva and Shakti. Okay, because the mythology is that Shiva sits on the mountaintops in the Himalayas, naked, unkempt, without shaving, hair everywhere. He looks like an animal. He's just not interested in his physical body. And down in the valley is Parvati, the earth goddess. And she has these dreams about her lover. She's never met him, but in her dreams, she sees him on the mountaintop and she's so in love with him. She yearns for him. And she leaves her home and climbs the mountains and goes to the top of the mountain. And here he is sitting on this glacier on top of the Himalayas, and she finds him. And she tries to communicate with him, and he doesn't even know he's there. He's so deep in meditation, he doesn't know she's there. He has no desire. His desire is union with the infinite. She wants union with him. She wants union with the infinite through him. He is her gateway to the union of the infinite. He in order to do that, must awaken and bring himself back down and have desire. Until he has desire, he doesn't notice her. So what she does is she tries all kinds of things. She tries to talk to him. She tries to sit and meditate next to him. She then starts to dance and sing and trying to get, and he won't wake up. So she has to call on the god of lust. We might call him Cupid. She has to call on this god of lust to put an arrow into him, which wakes him up, and he's woken up by his lust, and then he sees her and notices her, but he's so angry that he was taken out of his blissful meditation that he opens up his third eye and he destroys the god of lust. And then she begs him, and it is her begging and pleading for the life of the god of lust, and the tears that coming down her face as she begs and pleads for the life of that being, that's what grabs him, is her compassion for all living beings. The compassion that she has and the tears running down her face as she begs, please do whatever you want with me, but bring him back to life. I'm the one that brought him here. It's my fault. And her love for all creation is what motivates him to stay. And then he falls in love with her. So this is Kundalini. Kundalini is that. Now, Kundalini is associated with the 7 chakras. By the way, it's pronounced chakras, not chakras. Not chakras. It's pronounced chakras. Don't send me any notes telling me that I'm pronouncing it weird. It's pronounced chakras. The chakras are the 7 lokas, the 7 realms, the 7 dimensional the 7 dimensions of human experience. Opening up your chakras doesn't mean anything except that you are opening yourself up to human experience. When you leave your body, your chakras don't go with you. So just because you're opening a chakra isn't going to make you, leave this world. It means it's going to connect you to this world on one of the 7 planes of existence. And I have videos about what all the 7 chakras represent. I won't get into that because that'll take up too much time. But the chakras are connecting you to 7 psychological states of being. And the reason why we open the chakras is so that we can refine them and become better humans. When you have stimulated your Kundalini, it has risen all the way to the top and then gone all the way back down again, then you become a true human. And then what happens is you live your human life. And as you live your human life to your highest potential, you achieve liberation. So if you think that by awakening your Kundalini, you're going to achieve liberation because your Kundalini is awakened, I have bad news for you. The only thing that will come from that, which is what is supposed to happen, is that your Kundalini will allow you to purify your human attachments and your human experience so that your desires and your human experience on this planet will be to its highest potential, which means that you will burn through all of your desires and fulfill them, and then you won't want to come back, which means you will have achieved moksha or liberation. Kundalini is necessary. So, Kundalini symptoms, let's go back to those things. The tingling in the fingers, the hot flashes, the intense bliss, the fear, because some people have Kundalini psychosis. Some people go through hell. They see demons. They're afraid. Some people, as Kundalini psychosis, they will vacillate between feeling like a god and feeling persecuted. In fact, I have many quotes from people who message me about this who will say, my Kundalini was awakened and they chose me to become a god and I couldn't handle the pressure. In that you see the 2 extremes. They become a god, but it was forced upon them by them. So whenever you have this God victim mentality, That's Kundalini psychosis. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that your Kundalini was stimulated and your unresolved psychological issues were projected into your reality. So let's get rid of, there's no such thing as a good Kundalini experience or a bad Kundalini or a spiritual experience or a non-spiritual. It just means that your psychological issues have been stimulated. Your Kundalini is stimulated and you go into trance and you go to the heavens and you see the pure light of the being of all universes and you find out what true love is. Great. All that's happened is that you've experienced yourself. You've become aware of something within you that you weren't aware of before. If your Kundalini is stimulated and you see demons and you hear horrible voices and you go to hell, that means that something unresolved within you has been purged and you experienced it. That's all. Do not become attached to your experiences. In another video a while back where I talked about what Kundalini psychosis is, some woman responded and she started to say, I disagree with you. And she started to share her experience and all that. And then there was no shortage. I mean, just like hundreds of responses to her. And they sort of had this little group of, yeah, I had those things and I had Kundalini awakening. And she didn't like the idea that she felt that I was saying that her Kundalini experience wasn't an awakening. She wanted to hold on to the idea that she had had a spiritual awakening because she had all these symptoms or Kundalini psychosis or whatever it was. And I didn't respond because it was, I kind of felt for her and I didn't really, it wasn't really much to say, but the need to hold on to the idea that my experience means that I'm awakened. I'm awakened. I'm spiritual. That's ego. I will tell you, the truly Kundalini awakened person, somebody whose Kundalini has been fully awakened, whose Kundalini has risen through all the chakras, opened up the crown chakra, and gone all the way back down and rooted itself again in the root chakra, that person will be the most real, the most practical, the most down-to-earth, most humble person you will find. In other words, you won't be able to tell the difference. They won't walk around with this glow about them and the earth is shining and the earth shakes when they walk. If that happens and somebody has that, it means that they are not finished working through their karmas. It means they have karmic attachments to the idea of being a saint. Doesn't mean you can't learn from them or get great experiences from them, but I guarantee you, if you find somebody who's floating on the ground and light emits from them and they're a human being, follow that person. Because at some point you will find out how crazy they are. And you will find out that they are not enlightened. And you will go through a spiritual traumatic experience because you will then doubt the universe. This is why the Buddhists say, if you see Buddha on the road, kill him. Because you will lose your focus. Your focus is to purify your own human experience with your Kundalini. So let's now talk about what are the 5 signs that prove that you've had a Kundalini awakening, not a Kundalini experience or Kundalini psychosis. And again, who cares if it's an awakening or a psychosis? It's just an experience. We're all supposed to go through it. It doesn't make you better or worse, okay? That's important to understand. You don't have to have any experience. Here's one other scenario. I've given you all the many of the symptoms or the side effects of Kundalini stimulation. But somebody can have a complete Kundalini awakening, where Kundalini has risen through all of the chakras, opened up all the chakras, opened up the crown, and gone all the way back down, and they've had zero spiritual experiences. That is actually the preferred method. The preferred method is it means that person isn't having any blocked unconscious issues or psychological issues. Because imagine this: In each one of the chakras, let's just imagine that you have what are called samskaras. Samskaras are past life unresolved issues that are trapped in your aura. And what happens is when you have an energy experience, they're like little bubbles. They're like little bubbles, and once enough energy comes in, those samskaras get released. That samskara will create a universe around you, and you will experience something. Many times it will be of a visionary nature. You will have a vision and you'll go to heaven, or you'll be full of bliss, or you'll be full of fear, or you'll go to the underworld, or you'll see demons or hear voices. It's just an unresolved psychological block from a past life that's being released. It's just like, if you've, when you cleanse, if you've not eaten the greatest food in the world and then you decide to go through a cleanse, you may have some intestinal issues, or, maybe you'll get a rash or something as your body releases the toxins. That's all it is. It's not good or bad. It's just a necessary thing. So let's take the spiritual judgment off of, I've had a Kundalini awakening or I've had Kundalini psychosis and I'm bad. So what? It's just an experience. Who cares? So the 5 signs that you have actually had a Kundalini awakening. Number 1, humility. You will be humble. What is humility? Humility is not that you're a doormat. So people who walk around trying to show how spiritual they are and humbling themselves, and that's not humility, that's false humility. They want your attention. They want you to tell them how humble they are. Remember a guy that I knew, he was a very, very accomplished artist. I won't tell him what, but very accomplished artist. And he had an ego about it, as many artists do. And you have to have a big ego for some things, otherwise you never achieve your brilliance. And he had an ego about himself, and then he was talking about himself, and he says, what has changed from, way back when? You know what? I'm more humble now. And he wasn't. My experience of him was he wasn't very humble at all. That's false humility. That's not humility. Humility is not lording yourself over others. It's also not making a doormat of yourself. You are comfortable in yourself. You don't need to compete with other people. You don't need to be less than. Somebody achieves something, it doesn't make you envious or jealous. You're happy for them. You are fine just being a human being. That is the first one. You're comfortable just being a human being, and you're humble. Number 2, one of the things that will happen with Kundalini awakening is that you will be forced to deal with your boundary issues. Boundary issues with other people. Boundaries means knowing where you stop and other people begin. So when you have healthy boundaries, you have empathy. You can empathize with other people, especially, people who are less spiritual than you, people who are maybe mean or harmful or whatever. Hitler, you can look at Hitler and see how horrible of a human he was, and at the same time have empathy for, how sad for him that he went through that. And I can see under those circumstances when somebody would get so twisted, and that's very sad. You have empathy for everybody. You can see yourself in everybody, no matter how wonderful they are or how screwed up they are. You can empathize because you can imagine and see yourself in their place. This is one of the benefits of Kundalini awakening, because Kundalini is the psycho-spiritual energy of human experience. And when you have refined your Kundalini, you have empathy for people. You're not frightened of them, you're not repelled of them, and you don't need to fix them. So there's a balance between empathizing for other people and taking self-care, which is knowing where you stop and they begin. And you don't have to take on other people's desires or other people's expectations. You don't allow people to abuse you or take advantage of you. And at the same time, you're perfectly capable of accepting people where they are without having to judge them. This is healthy boundaries. The third sign that you've achieved Kundalini awakening is that you have joy in your life and you have joy in the journey of your human experience. If you are somebody who is afraid, who thinks that, who laments the how the elites are destroying society, how politicians are destroying this, even real things like global warming, assuming you believe in that, if if you take that on and your focus on this life is all of the horrible things that are being done and how victimized people are, if you see that the world is being dominated by aliens or reptilians or beings of light that want to take your hope away, whether that's true or not, I'm not trying to say it's true or not, but I'm saying if your kundalini is awakened, those things don't affect you. You have joy, and you have joy in your life, and you love the journey of life. If you are somebody who says, I can't wait, I have to escape the matrix and I need enlightenment and I can't wait, I don't ever want to come back to this horrible place, I'm sorry to say your kundalini has not been fully refined. It may have been awakened or stimulated, but you haven't been fully refined yet. Because you will simultaneously love being on the earth, and at the same time, you will be able to detach from the imperfections of this world and the imperfections of people, because that's all we're talking about. The imperfections of other people will not have the power to color your experience of life. It doesn't mean you go into denial and you forget that all those things are happening. You're fully aware, and when you can help, you do. If you want to become an activist and you want to help the environment, if you want to be a teacher and you want to help people grow spiritually, you will take joy in that, but you will not be attached to the outcome. You will enjoy your life and you will love the journey of life. That is the third sign of Kundalini awakening. The fourth sign of Kundalini awakening is that you will have a hope for the future of humanity. You will see that human beings are in the process of evolution, both physical and spiritual, and you will enjoy the idea of Earth being a school where the soul comes to learn. And even though people make drastic mistakes, you will love that human beings are learning. And this will give you hope for the future of humans and the soul of humans. The progression and the evolution, the journey of the soul of human beings through infinity. You will have hope. Fifth sign that you have had a Kundalini awakening. You will have healthy non-attachment. It means that you will enjoy this life as an experience, and you will be fully invested in it, and at the same time you will not take it too seriously. You won't take yourself too seriously or anybody else too seriously. You will understand and you will be able to laugh and go, it's just human life. I'm just here to learn and have fun. While at the same time loving and committing and having a full human experience. So the fifth sign is that you will have a healthy non-attachment to anything, including your own life. You'll be aware that this is just one life out of many. You will know that your time will come and that there will come a day where you will no longer be in this avatar and this meat bag, this human personality, and you won't have any attachment to it. Doesn't mean you won't be maybe perhaps afraid of death. That is a normal part of being human. The human physical brain and body doesn't want to die, so that's going to be part of you as long as you live in the human body. But you won't be attached to this life or a previous life or a future life. You will be part of the flow. You'll have a healthy non-attachment to human life. This is the essence of spirituality. This is the essence of Buddhism, right? That the middle path is attachment causes desire. Desire causes pain. So the best thing to do is be free of attachment. Of course, that's not And that's not possible because Kundalini is attachment. So it's this dance with your Kundalini to have your attachment, to have your desires, and not have it uh, be too serious. It's also the way to health, by the way, is just not taking anything too seriously. Take things too seriously, you can make yourself sick. If you want to be healthy, enjoy life and don't take anything too seriously. Okay? So those are the 5 signs that your Kundalini has been awakened. I've also given you signs about when your Kundalini has been stimulated. And that is a good sign because Kundalini stimulation means that you're on the way to purifying your Kundalini. Perhaps, it's stimulated some release, maybe some toxic release, but that's okay. That's part of the journey. Don't get attached to it one way or another. You can go, ooh, I had a Kundalini experience. Good, I'm evolving. You can say, I haven't had any of those things. Well, somebody who has full, complete opening of the chakras and whose Kundalini has come up and all the way down is somebody who is practical, who knows how to live life, who loves other people, who enjoys their life, can live in this reality and enjoy it. There's somebody that is good to others, has good is mature. The sign that if you really want to know the sign of somebody who has achieved enlightenment, is somebody who is psychologically and emotionally mature. And those people, even if there is somebody on this planet who has achieved complete enlightenment, I guarantee you will never know it. They will never tell you. Because the truth is, they won't even be thinking about it. They will have lost any attachment to the idea of awakening, enlightenment. If being awakened and enlightened is really important to you, you should follow it, but it means you're not there yet. So have some humility. Just be human. It's the bottom line. Okay, so I told you that I would tell you how to do that. So what I'd like for you to do is go up, first off, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button, and then go up to chakras.thunderwizard.com. And I have some video teachings about the chakras, and you can get into them, what each of them means, what they represent. And then you can learn an advanced form of the Gayatri mantra, where you can use breath as well as a very specific chant, which is designed to open up and refine all of the chakras. So go to chakras.thunderwizard.com to enjoy that and learn how to stimulate and refine and truly have a Kundalini awakening and have some control over it. One of the things that people complain about is that when my Kundalini awakening happened to me, and they're a victim to their Kundalini, this is not ideal. When you do spiritual practices like the long form of the Gayatri mantra with the breath, then you take control over the awakening of your Kundalini, and it is a pleasant experience. It's not a crazy experience. And then you can go to courses.thunderwizard.com and you can find all of the things that I offer and the things that I make available and all the things that I teach. And hopefully you can find something there that will be helpful for you. So subscribe, hit the bell button, and that's it for today. I'll see you guys very soon.